Okay, let's get going with working that paint into this pretty velvet nap. I actually got started last night and painted a little bit on the back, and I'll include a picture of how that looks after the first coat is dried, because actually you're gonna think probably that it's looking like a hot mess, but then once we get that second coat on there and you sand a little bit in between, I think it's gonna be looking really good. So let me just show you the brush stroke on this instead of just the smooth strokes like you do, that you don't really have to even pay any attention much. You just kind of slap it on with regular chalk painting, but with this you have to just take a little more time and just work it into this smooth surface just to make sure that it gets up between all the little fibers. So I'm going to show you how that's done. Just take a little bit on your brush, and then you're just going to want to take a small area at a time and just kind of really work it in there. These little places like where it's piped, you have to kind of punch down to make sure it's getting into those little areas. And the thing is, you want to just apply a very thin coat because you don't want your fabric to come out stiff. I just can't think of anything much worse than sitting in a chair that used to be really soft velvet that turned out stiff. Now, the sanding process that we're going to do between coats is going to help with this to some degree, but also just making sure that you just don't get an overload of paint on there, and just make sure that you're going in all directions, because you're going to see, like when you go up, the nap stands up, and that's your chance to work some paint into the other side. And then of course when you go down, just the opposite, but up and down strokes and even side to side, just making sure you're getting that. And you'll be able to tell by looking that it's getting just really worked into the fabric. So we'll just keep doing that for a minute. And if you still see, like I can still see, I don't know if you can from where you are, but there's some of the gold original color still coming through there. We're not going to worry about that at this point, because whatever is still showing through, I believe we can cover on our second go around. And even if it doesn't completely cover, once the nap is laying in the right direction, and it will be once we've finished and did our little sanding process and everything, you're not going to be able to see that old color anyway. I'm almost positive. So we're just going to see how this turns out. Just keep on repeating that application, like I said, you know, along this little piped area. That's going to take a little more work. Doesn't have to be perfect, just like anything with chalk painting. It's not necessary. Perfection is not the goal. We can make this work, but just up and down, and just again making sure that it's not going on too thick. Now when I first started painting, and I painted the back of this chair last night, I got some paint on the chair legs, and at first I was like, oh, probably shouldn't have done that. But you know what? That's going to be okay, because I'm going to go back and use just regular formula chalk paint using the mixture that I told you about before, that you just use for painting on wood. I'm just going to paint those with chalk paint, and it's going to cover over all this green. I'm not going to have to worry about sanding or anything like that. But I hope you can see how this is going into the nap of the fabric. And again, our hope is that the sanding process is going to make sure that this pretty chair is not going to be stiff when it's finished. So I'll come back in a few minutes and show you how it looks dry, and I'll see you then.